Good podcast though.
Very good. I mean, you're Mister. You wanna learn all this Penn State stuff. Well, you got to go to the sources, man. Yeah, there's not many occasions where
So Bo tells all the secrets.
No, but you gotta
get an insight.
You get an insight for sure. And I wanted to get into some of the insights. But we don't have to start with that. We can do that anytime.
Yeah. I got my sources. Don't worry. I'm starting to figure some things
You've been
out.
a wealth of information here.
I mean, honestly, it's kind of what I would have guessed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that it?
That's it. That's all I can tell you.
See, now here's what's funny. He was Mr. Why don't they just tell him?
No, I'm messing. That was a joke. It was supposed to be funny, but
When's the funny start?
It's kind of a lot of gratitude. They actually love wrestling. That's a really big one, I think, and I think that's overlooked. I think there's so many college wrestlers who are like, too many matches, we're burnt out, we don't want to do this anymore, and I think they genuinely really enjoyed the sport of wrestling. I think they probably aren't overtrained, which is why they don't get hurt a lot. I think it's a huge one. Yeah.
We'll circle back to it maybe.
Let's get into it.
Let's just do it
now. I mean, I know. Like I listened to an interview with Mitchell and talked to Mitchell when I was in Pennsylvania as well, and he was like, "Yeah, they forced me off of the mat some days." He was like, I used to wrestle 7 days a week, and now
I was dying about this one because Mitchell would always like, yeah, I want to take today off, but I feel guilty, blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, you should probably just take today off. And they'd be like, nah, and he would do something anyways, So for like probably 2 years, I was like literally suggesting this to him, but I didn't force it. I wasn't like, this is what you're doing today. I'm like, yeah, you should probably take today off. Like, you went really hard the last 3 days, you did a bunch of 2 days, you should probably take today off. And he'd always be like, nah, I feel guilty, I'm gonna wrestle. And now they're like, I was laughing because it was when he came back. He was there for a month and he came back and he's like, yeah, we take Saturdays off. It's really good. It's really helping me. Like, you mean like I've been suggesting for like the last 2 years?
It's funny, Ben, and I wonder if this is sort of what you're experiencing with Mitchell. Like, even though you're not his parent, but you've been around him for so much of his life, and probably in a lot of ways. And I'm sure you've experienced it. Well, you probably more as your kids get a little older and more into sports. But like, this happens so much right now with Caleb in sports and in wrestling particularly, where like you'll tell him something and it's like it's not really received. Not that he's like putting it down, but you can tell it's not like that light bulb thing. And then a coach will tell him, Tyler or JD or whoever will tell him, and then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, got it. So I wonder if it's a little bit of that too. Like,
I think it's a little bit of that.
You just need that outside sort of perspective. You're too on the inside, Ben.
Yeah, too on the inside. No, that made me laugh, but it was great. It's
that
great.
is funny.
I love it.
But a bunch of things. I just got a bunch of notes. So when Jocko invariably asked him about like, hey, what is it like there? What is the culture there? And he said these, and he's like, these are like the three main pillars of like the philosophy, which are maybe in no particular order, but he may have said that in this order, like, know what you want. So like understand your goals and have like pretty clear vision for, I guess, what you're trying to achieve. Yep. Give effort, give high effort, and show gratitude. Those are like the three main things that he kept reinforcing, and that's also really consistent with other things we've heard. So that's like, I would describe that more as a philosophy. And then when they got a little into the training, of course not a ton, and even if they did, would we really know what it all meant? But he said at the end of it, being proficient at wrestling technically is what is focused on most.
Yes.
He said that training is tailored individually, like every guy needs different things, that's sort of intuitive, right?
Yeah. Hold on. You say intuitive, but
it's not implemented.
A lot of colleges train that way. So even though, and this is one of those things where it's like, I think if you really put a coach in a corner and you had him in an interview, they'd be like, yeah, I know that different guys need different things, but then the practice of actually doing it, because it takes a lot of mental effort and time, they maybe cut some corners.
So you know what I would maybe say? I'm unfamiliar with a coach that doesn't in a program that doesn't have individuals, where it's like you're working individually with the kids. I'm yet to hear of one where they don't talk about that. So I would say in that way they do have that individual focus, but probably when it comes down to practice time, that's when it's more like team practice.
Yes, I agree. That's what I would second that. I think almost everyone does individuals, but then even within those individuals, like how technically, like you can mail it in, right? You could say we're doing individual and having a one-on-one and then teach all the guys the same things, right? Or just kind of make it real baseline. But like to really get into like the nitty-gritty details with individual people. And then I think, like you said, even within the practices, I think different guys are doing different things.
Yeah. He said that the drilling, light sparring, and live ratio is adjusted totally based on the individual. So some guy needs more drilling, someone needs more live, someone needs more sparring. That's adjusted. And this is another consistent theme through line as we've been able to listen more and more to Penn State wrestlers just kind of talk about, just talk, right? With all the podcasts they've been doing. But he said, man, we have all these amenities here. And Jocko's like, what amenities? He's like, the amenities that just help us do better. And he's like, what are they? He's like, hot tub, cold tub, sauna, weights, it's all here. He said, but the biggest one is our sports psychologist. But he's like, but she's more than a sports psychologist. This
like a life coach.
Mythical Bonnie figure.
Bonnie, yeah.
Who has been there, and he gave a little bit of her background, like, she helped Kale first, then he brought her full-time on staff, and he didn't get too into how it works and how she's so effective, but consistently we've been hearing about what she brings to the table for Penn State is highly, highly valuable.
Yes.
So that's notable. Yeah. The trainer, he said, uses a lot of I think he just described it as Eastern methods, which is not something I would have expected. They referred to the training lab, Coach Cal, as being very, very helpful as well. He was dismissive, and I've heard them be dismissive consistently of kind of like running for conditioning and that kind of thing, and tons of heavyweight. Yeah, Penn's like, I've been saying this for years, Coach Smith.
I tried telling Coach Smith in 2003.
Yeah, that's funny. So I'm trying to think of anything else. There's other things. Obviously, it's a couple hour long.
The Ohio State strength and conditioning coach, who I did an interview with on that road trip a while back too, he kind of said the same thing.
Myers, that's the one?
No. They're the actual Ohio State strength and conditioning coach, Kevin Enchelmeyer. He said kind of the same thing about running when I asked him, like, hey, what's the best thing to do in terms of to get strong and get in shape? And he's like, lift heavy weights to get strong, wrestle to get in shape.
Interesting.
Right.
And he said, if I'm being really nitpicky, he's like, still do some conditioning work, but a bike is going to put less
pounding,
quote, miles, unquote, on your body, and will still have the same effect as running. So I know, like, the Ohio State team still had a run workout planned for later in the week, so it's not like they don't run at all, but it's like, think about a bike sometimes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, here's one other thing that I thought was so interesting, and I'd sort of heard a little bit of this previously, just like the data that they keep. So he said the coaches will sit in a room and they will have data on what they did last year, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, decades of data of what they did. And I'd also heard that, like, I think Cody and they monitor injuries, and when guys are starting to get, like, when you start to get a couple more nicks, and they're logging all this data, so they're like have a pretty deep, I think, understanding of like what could be leading to that in their training, and so they understand like when to throttle back or whatever. And man, that level of data and probably doesn't exist much in the sport.
Similarly, to bring it back to Ohio State, they all wear the Oura rings, and they are very, like, even with like sleep, they have sleep data and just recovery data, everything. They just collect a lot of data. But I do want to say, I think in a different interview, I don't think it was this one, I was listening to Bo Nickal do a while back, and he said something that gave him an edge mentally in college was he would run home every day after practice, though.
Yeah.
Did he tell Kale about it?
Terry Brands.
I don't think so.
Terry Brands talked about.
But he would literally give Kassar like his backpack or whatever and say, hey, you take this. And then he would run the mile home or half a mile home or whatever it was every day.
And he would tell himself, like, I bet Gabe Dean didn't just do that or whatever. And I remember Terry Brands said basically the same thing to Henry Cejudo, because Henry's like, what do I need to do to be an Olympic champion? And he just told him, you need to do something every day that no one in the world is doing or willing to do. And Terry was like, it didn't matter what it was he decided it was. It was just that he picked something that he thought would be like valuable and set him apart. And so he had this like, I think like a pull-up, push-up routine or whatever it was. So probably something to that, just a mental edge. I'm trying to think what else. There's a lot of great stuff. Bo's obviously killing it, and yeah.
And did Jocko call Kale a wimp for thinking sleep is really important? Because Jocko gets it before you.
Oh, that's interesting. You know what? Sleep did not come up, and Jocko at the end of the podcast was basically like, "Yeah, we did not get into." It's a pretty long podcast, but he's like, we didn't get into a lot of the stuff we got into, and then we started talking afterwards, and I was like, all right, we're gonna have to do this again. So they'll probably do another one. Maybe they'll get more into that. That would be interesting. Listen,
I bet Jocko would say if you're trying to be an elite athlete, you maybe need more sleep than the 4 or 5 hours.
So that would be obviously, like, if you're a Navy SEAL, obviously you're not going to compete under perfect circumstances. You might have to be deprived of sleep or food or whatever, right? But I feel like that, and maybe, Jocko kind of encourages people to do that for their lives, just because there are too many people who are too comfortable and probably need to get used to maybe being a little more uncomfortable and sacrificing a little bit. Maybe that's what he would say. But as far as an elite athlete, you've likely already sacrificed a lot. You already are very, very tough. And so needing to wake up at a specific time every morning is probably maybe unnecessary.
For sure.
For Jocko's purposes, he's not trying to be the best in the world at an athletic feat like jiu-jitsu. He's a business person.
He's a businessman. He's busy person. And also, there's just some people that maybe he just doesn't need as much sleep. Maybe a time will come.
That's not factual. You got to go read Why We Sleep by who wrote Why We Sleep?
You're the one that read it.
I think that was Tolkien.
Why you're antagonizing.
Well, I threw a name out there.
They have never found anyone in the lab. They have never found anyone who actually needs less sleep. So, like, they test them on cognitive and physical tests after being sleep deprived, like less than 8 hours, and they see how they perform. And they have yet to find someone who performs equally well with a lot of sleep versus a little sleep. What they say is a lot of people have slept so little for such a long time that their baseline is now set at a lower than where it should be, and so they feel like that's their normal when it probably shouldn't be. So both cognitively and physically, lack of sleep is really negatively affecting performance.
It's pretty rare I can sleep 8 hours anyways, though. Like,
you're probably close, though.
What would he say about that? No. I mean, probably maybe 1 to 2 times a week will I get 8 hours.
So I think the adults are 7 to 8.
Yeah.
So are you close to that or no?
I'm close.
Of actual sleep, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like,
Well, he said, this is weird because I know obviously not all the time, but there's times when I'm thinking about an upcoming event or something, right? And I'm just like kind of going over it a whole bunch, and it takes me a while to fall asleep. But I believe the way they define it is 8 hours of like in your bed. But then they do qualify that as like you must have a conducive sleep environment, i.e. like it's dark, quiet, and kind of cold.
Yeah. Because if you're in the process of falling asleep, you're still, quote, resting, unquote, type.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I believe, I'd have to reread to be, but I'm pretty sure on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now I don't have to read the book.
You got the cliff notes.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have Ben read Ben reads like every book ever. So.
Yeah. And just tell me what it means.
You guys are...
Save me a lot of time.